All right. Welcome to another episode of Navigating Consciousness. I am usual, as always, your host, Daniel. Um, all right. Well, definitely got a few things to get into today. First thing, I just wanted to see how everyone's enjoying the Pluto to Aquarius transit that we're going through. It's still, I believe it's still in 0 degrees. So it hasn't actually, I mean, it's left Capricorn and it's entered Aquarius, but it hasn't even gotten, I mean, it won't get into the first degree for quite a while, I think. But anyway, um, I've been feeling the energy. I've been very optimistic. Maybe that's because of my Aquarius sun. Uh, so the energy suits me. And but yeah, I don't know. Little bit of up and down, definitely. Today, starting last night into today, I've been really feeling something shifting in the background energy. There's a lot coming to light as Pluto moves into Aquarius. Of course, Elon Musk announced today or yesterday that they had done the first human, successful human trial with their brain chip, Neuralink. It's a very Aquarian concept. Um, I'm sure we're going to get a lot more of that moving forward. And then last week I was talking about or 2 weeks last it was either last week or the week before I was talking about there's going this bankruptcy energy really moving forward and then today UPS announces they're cutting 13,000 staff or something and trying to reduce their operating costs by $1 billion. One of the largest real estate companies in China is it's like 300 billion underwater, something like that, and they're being bailed out, I think. But more of this for sure, and it's going to these bankruptcies are very large, like very large corporations that have gotten a lot of support from the government, especially during COVID, and so the government's put a lot of money into these things, and they're going to be overextending what the government can do, how they can get bailed out. Um, hey, Allison. Uh, yeah, so a lot of, I don't know, it's all just rolling forward. No real surprises. I would say watch. There's a lot of room for optimism, but don't let it cloud you from the realities that we're still moving through. So, by all means, be optimistic and feel good as we move out of this 15-year zone of Pluto and Capricorn. That was a real gut punch in so many ways, but yeah, on to bigger and better things. Pluto Aquarius till 2044. Pluto will be going back into Capricorn for about a month in November. So there will be one more opportunity to revisit some of those Capricorn themes, especially on the cusp. So wherever planets are on the cusp of signs, there tends to be a greater degree of intensity. So the most intense periods of a planetary transit are going to be when the planet enters and when it exits, outside of any aspects that a planet might make with other planets. But yeah, we're on to it, and I could definitely feel that. We're on to something different, and we've been really on the cusp of this for a while, and we're going to be sort of still on the cusp for quite a while. So Pluto's going to be in early Aquarius, moving back and forth, right, for quite a while, maybe 5 years. And that's reflected in human design as well as Pluto moves into the 41st gate in April. I was talking about this last week. And it's going to be moving in and out of the 41st gate again for about 5 years. So, yeah, so, we're on to something new, but we're not quite on to it, and we're not going to be onto it for a little while. And I would imagine that this period is going to be very exciting. I wanted to revisit something in my sessions that's really been coming up over the past couple of days has been just this theme of Pluto in Capricorn. Um, there's been a lot of discussion depending on who you're listening to, a lot of discussion about young, like boys, like teenage boys and girls too, but specifically the amount of inactivity that a lot of teenage boys have, and how they're really just preferring to, play video games, and they're not really interested in like applying themselves, in lots of ways that one might expect a teenage boy to apply himself in. And I was talking to a client of mine who has a 15-year-old son who's, they're having some issues with, and I myself have a stepson who's 15, and I can see, I can see what's going on, and it's interesting because there's just over the past month or so, there's just been a number of people who I've started working on who have boys around this age, 14, 15. Um, I'd say boys between the age of 10 and 15 are going to be probably the most heavily influenced by what I'm about to talk about. And that is, if you're 15 now, you were born in 2008, and that's when Pluto entered Capricorn. And so from the jump, it's just been about the decimation of, structure and continuity and masculine authority, all the things that Capricorn represents: discipline, consistency, conservatism, right? So in this time, there's been a real flip where throughout my entire life, what the left wing stood for and what the right wing stood for is flipped around. When I was coming up in my activist phase, in my left wing environment, nobody trusted the pharmaceutical companies. Nobody was pro-war, and now you look at the Democrats or Justin Trudeau up in Canada or whatever, and were all the European leaders pretty much without exception, and they're all like pro-pharmaceuticals, pro-war, very antagonistic, and that was always a complaint, from the left side to the right side, right? That the right wing was too pro-war and too trusting of the pharmaceutical industries or big agriculture or any of these things. And now, like Bill Gates is sort of a hero to the left or something, and he's the largest landowner in North America, and grows potatoes for McDonald's, and like modifies apples and whatever, and everyone's just, I don't know. It's a funny thing, but it's also very indicative of that Pluto and Capricorn phase. So all these boys who are, 15, 14, approaching their later teen years, they're all products of that Pluto in Capricorn, which is to say that they never grew up with any kind of structure, not anything recognizable to anyone older anyway. They came into this world, and the first thing that they felt in their little bodies was, economic downturn, economic panic of a sort that has never really been experienced before, and that we haven't really gotten out of. We haven't really recovered, from 2008. And I was talking about this last week as well. But yeah, just the sort, and I can tie it back to human design in a certain way also, because like what I was saying 2 or 3 weeks back about talking about these galactic cycles and the cross of planning that we've been in since 1615, the biggest thing about the cross of planning with that 37th gate and the 40th gate is this idea of a bargain, that people used to be able to afford things. They worked and they got paid not really a lot of money, but whatever they got, they were able to, put some away and like buy a small house somewhere and, have a life for themselves. That bargain is gone for most people. So yeah, and that bargain started to disintegrate in 2008, right? With the housing crisis and the economic downturn, and people losing their homes, and a lot more jobs getting exported, going to China, going to Mexico, going wherever. And yeah, and so I was just really thinking about, these discussions that are being had about what are we going to do with these kids. Like they're not really learning, because the school system doesn't have any authority. Its authority got stripped. Now they're just passing kids. And maybe that's fine. I don't really have a lot of faith in the school system to teach people anything of much value. So, cool. But it's also just, yeah, like, I don't know, people are, maybe it's just my little silo, maybe it's just my little corner of Twitter or X now, or just, the people who I happen to be working on who seem to be having these kind of difficulties. And, maybe it's something that I can shift. Maybe I'm part of my purpose on this planet at this time is to work with these families and these kids, these boys, specifically, and find some kind of meaning that they can connect to, because there hasn't been any for most of their life. And then of course, they enter, junior high school, and we go into or middle school, or we go into lockdown. So definitely some socialization that got interrupted there. But yeah, it just seems to me all very kind of correct in a certain way at the same time. And this is kind of dovetails into my next point. I really wanted to talk a lot today, or as much as I can, about because I talk a lot about the background energy and these galactic cycles, and that we're in this shift, and the background energy is going to prefer different things. So I just really wanted to make it clear what I'm talking about. So I was having a conversation with this woman, and I was telling her about human design, and I was talking about the galactic cycles, and that that we're on the cusp of a shift, and talking about how much the family is going to be changing, the importance of the family changing, because the family's the 37th gate, and that's like the sun, of this particular age. So the family structure has been very important, and the father has been the authority, of that family structure. Just need some water. So we can see how this overlaps. We're moving out of a time where the background energy was very supportive of the family, of family cohesion, and doing things for your family. And I've talked about this a bunch, but I'll keep repeating it. Pluto and Capricorn, more than anything, I mean, definitely economically brought it all down, because like I said, as soon as it moved into Capricorn, we had the housing crisis, which we haven't recovered from, and now maybe we can start recovering. Another thing that Pluto and Capricorn really did was destroy the idea of male authority and male dominance, and I think that's also fine, right? It's like, it's good. The future is feminine. We don't know what that means yet. There's a lot of ideas that you can kind of extrapolate from that concept, but we won't really know what that means until we're actually doing it. So while Pluto was in Capricorn, you had the real development of these ideas that masculinity is toxic, and this is what I'm talking about with like background energy, right? So this woman who I was talking to, I was telling her about the family being the focus, not going to be the focus, right? There's the focus of the sleeping phoenix, the age we're moving into, has to do with the individual, and it has to do with selfishness, and ideally we're altruistically selfish, right? We're making the right decisions for ourselves, and we know because it's the right decision for ourselves that it's going to work out well for anyone else who might be involved, if it's correct for them to be involved with us. And she started talking about the effort to destroy the family, and a lot of people have obviously been talking about this, right? That there is very clearly a focus to break the family apart. And there's a lot of ideas about where this pressure might be coming from, that it's a Marxist plot. And yeah, that's true. There's definitely Marxists in very high levels of, policy making who are, you know, creating environments that aren't supportive to a family. If you can't afford a house, that's not supportive to a family, right? Um, if both parents work full time, that's not supportive to a family. That means that the children are being raised by other people. So yes, there is an attack on the family. There's an attack on even having a family, right? Having children. Um, there's a lot of people who are refusing to have children, uh, due to like moral grounds, right? Because we're overpopulated, or so they say, and maybe we are. I don't know. But what I do know is that the background energy is not supporting big families. And there was a time where the background energy did support big families. There was a time where the background energy supported the father having a very specific role, an authoritative role in the family structure, for good or not, right? And that's the thing that a lot of people miss too. The background energy is not about, it's not about good. It's not about like, oh, this works really well, right? It can, but it also probably won't in lots of different cases. So, for example, the background energy is shifting, and the idea of family is shifting with it, and the importance of family is shifting with it, and people's ability to have a family is shifting with it, either because it's too expensive or because they're infertile, which is also like a major issue, right? A lot of people spending a lot of dollars on medical procedures to have children because their bodies can't do it naturally anymore. That's the background energy, right? That's not happening for no reason. It's happening now because the energy supports the development of these things. These antinatalist policies and ideas that have become somewhat dominant in our culture could not have existed 100 years ago because the background energy wasn't there to support it. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, and they think it's because they have, free will, or because they're well educated, or because they, have a specific concern about something and they think they have a solution. But it's really none of that. It's really just, it's the background energy informing them of what they should be doing, right? So it's not giving them specific details. It's not like, you need to do this way. People are operating from their damage. People are operating from their trauma. People are operating from the places that they don't want to acknowledge, or that they're not even conscious of, because it's generational trauma, or because it has to do with a past life, or because it's, a certain planetary aspect rolling out its energy in a way that hits them in a detrimental way, right? So they can only do, a lower vibration expression of it. I said this before, but it's a good example, so talking about COVID and like the lockdown and all that. I mean, when that happened, my sense at the time was that it was like we were graduating high school, and the best use of that energy was like having a party, right? Having a ceremony, everyone getting together and having fun and celebrating the accomplishments of the past 18 years, or whatever time frame you want to use. But it was just clear to me that we were all moving on, right? We're moving on to something different. And much like when you graduate high school, some people stay in their hometown, some people go away to college, and everyone kind of scatters, and they go to different locations, and they have different experiences. Some join the military, some start working at the mill, whatever. And some people start a family, and some don't. No matter what, these people who we've been with for a long time, and, who have moved through this whole thing with us, I just felt it very clearly. It's like, yeah, this is when we're gonna start breaking apart. and going our different ways. And instead of having a celebration, instead of being conscious of the background energy and its shifting, we were put into a very nasty position. Um, so but that also just that's the way it went because of a variety of reasons, mostly involving agreements that certain very powerful people and families and whatever have made with uh, entities and organisms that certainly don't have our best interest in mind. And I've talked about this quite a bit in previous episodes, but yeah, it's like they needed the harvest to continue, and so it did. And things got bad for a lot of people. I mean, abuse, right? People locked in the house, that aren't used to being locked in a house together, and that are also under the pressure of the new energy to start moving in different directions. It didn't work, right? It was just like, and I mean, it worked in some cases. I mean, it was a pretty good time. Like my experience of it, I was pretty fine with it. Um, I don't know. It was different for different people, but it's all an expression of this background energy. And it's just good. It's good to know what the background energy is and what it's doing. Not so that not so that you can be a part of it. It's like, I wouldn't recommend joining in any kind of movement, right? Because that's just background energy informing a group of people on what they should do, what they could do. You don't want to, sort of by being aware of it, you get to sort of be above it in a certain way. You get to choose where you dip your toe into, and what you want to participate in, and what's correct for you to participate in based on how the energy's shifting. So, just getting a very, basic understanding of how the planets move, because that is the representation of the background energy. That is the pattern, right? That's the pattern that we were born into, and that's the pattern that's sort of controlling our lives in a certain way. And it's just good to know like what kind of pattern we're in, and what you can expect from that pattern, and what you can anticipate people doing when confronted with that background energy, as it shifts and changes. So yeah, I'm just checking to see if there's any. I feel like there's something we can do here together today. My client who I was working on, something that we were really something we were creating together, had to do with being able to impact a lot of these boys, and also coming into a different sort of position about what it is to be a father, right? So Pluto in Capricorn 2008, to 2024. There was a brief moment in 2023 where it already entered into Aquarius, but yeah, by and large, it's like, yeah, being a father, becoming a father while Pluto was in Capricorn, that's a rough gig. That was a rough gig for a lot of dudes, because there was no even opportunity. It's like the way our fathers were, and by I mean, my father's generation, like the boomers, boomer fathers, and our, those of us who had parents who are boomers, and their grandparents, the great generation or the silent generation, depending on ages. Yeah, like they weren't present emotionally, but their presence was felt, and their presence was, I think, respected in a lot of ways. Maybe uh, maybe maybe respect's not the right word, but anyway, you understand what I'm getting at. There was something that was there. There was something that our fathers put into the mix, and that energy was just no longer available. The energy of a father to be an authority in his family, and to do it in a way that worked, that worked well. Um, yeah, just that authoritative structure just was not allowed. And like I said, while Pluto was moving through Capricorn, you had this whole toxic masculinity thing. And I think a lot of men, rightfully so, were afraid to use their power, to use their authority. Um, in a lot of cases, it blew up in their faces, but also it was no one knows how to use it correctly. We weren't taught how to use it correctly. Our fathers didn't teach us. There was like a lot of things kept secret. There was a lot of things that they said they were, protecting us from, or, you know, yeah, but there wasn't like that. Again, it's like that background energy just couldn't exist. Our fathers couldn't be the source of wisdom. And then as a consequence, we couldn't be the source of wisdom for our children. They didn't look to us for that, right? They looked to their peer group. They looked to, a lot of these boys are hooked, like they're all hooked on video games. They're not interested in interacting with like the world. But again, kind of like rightfully so. I mean, it's what are they like? You used to be able to go camping, and used to be able to actually like go somewhere where where you can have a kind of experience. You can have a sort of a adventure. Now it's sort of like locked into a campground with a bunch of people, and like some people are like drinking, and the Bluetooth speakers, and all this other stuff, and it's not fun. you know and they're just they're interested in something else, right? They're interested in a world that lies, I don't know, outside of this one. But what I want to get to is that I think there's something that right. Yeah, Allison, thank you. Yeah, the kids may not respect me, but they'll fear me. So that's a very much like a Capricorn kind of way, right? It's like the Capricorn exaltation is respect, respecting the elders, respecting like convention, being conservative, right? It's like we've done things this way for this many years, and we're going to continue to do them this way because it works. That's it in its exaltation. In its detriment, it's about fear. It's like, well, if you don't respect me and you don't do what I tell you, then there's going to be punishment. And that in the planetary aspects, that's very much what Saturn stands for. Speaking of which, because of Pluto's movement, Saturn is also doing something, and I forget what its motion is right now, but black is Saturn's color, and that's why a lot of the Judeo-Christian religions like Judaism, Islam, Christianity, they're actually all based on Saturnian worship. So um, the Canaanite god, the sort of top dog, was El, and that's why you have like Israel. It's Isis Ra El, right? So it's an amalgamation of Egyptian and Canaanite thought or philosophy or godheads. So and then there's in the Muslim tradition, there's the Black Rock in Mecca, right? And Orthodox Jews put those little black boxes all over their body. So it's all Saturn worship. So anyway, what I'm saying though is that we do need to respect Saturn. Saturn is deserving of our respect, and it's very interesting because I've been buying a lot of black clothes even before I like it didn't really click. I haven't worn black for a long time. I like wearing blue. Blue's like very much like a color that I resonate with. But then I found myself buying like a pair of black pants, and I've got 4 black sweaters. I found these merino wool sweaters, and it was like a good deal, so I got 4 of them, and that's just my outfit. I'm not wearing any black today, but it feels, I don't know, it's just an interesting thing to make a connection there. That Saturn and black, just wearing black clothes, especially on Saturday, wearing black on Saturday, which is Saturn's day. For those of you who don't know, all the days of the week are named after planets, which are gods, right? So And it's very clear in French, especially. Like Monday is Moon Day. It's like lundi in French, and lune, is moon in French, and you know Tuesday is Mercury. Wednesday is no, sorry, Tuesday is Mars. Wednesday is Mercury. Thursday is Thor's day, so that's Jupiter. And Friday is Freya's day, and that's Venus. So it's, again, just like knowing these things, it's very helpful in understanding what the energy is going to be like and what you might be interfacing with, and what you might want to do as a consequence. And then that also depends on your human design and everything else. Waiting for the invitation, responding to what's there. Um, etc. But yeah, just like it's all built into our structure, right? The awareness of the planets and the energy and the influence they have on us. It's everywhere. But we have not been educated. We have not been given that wisdom. It's been kept secret, or it's been forgotten. Um, and it's just like, you know, the energy is there to rediscover a lot of this stuff and to apply it in a way that's actually useful or helpful, and doesn't deny. So there's something coming up. I can really feel it. I got a real tickle. Yeah, no, I don't know if you guys can, if that mic picked up my you know my gut noises, but that's something. When I start picking up on something, my intestines seem to start getting very talkative. Uh, so yeah, so there's something being denied, and it's really like the denial of, like, the truth of what we are and what we're doing and like where we are. And I don't think that we can get the whole truth of it, but there's definitely a lot of things that are being misconstrued on purpose. Something that yeah, Jillian, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm going to. Jillian's just recommending that I write a book, and many many people have told me this, so I will get to that at some point. I was thinking about history. I studied history in university as well as anthropology. That's my bachelor's is I majored in anthropology with a minor in history, and so I know how that's taught. And I mean, I haven't been in school for 20 plus years at this point, but at the time, it was very clear that, talking about Saturn and how Saturn works, and that sort of like that Capricorn energy of just keeping things in place, like locked in, and then Pluto rolls in and it all just explodes, you know, even to the point of questioning, you know, things that just never got questioned, like gender. I mean, and I don't have a point of view here. It's just interesting to watch, that it's even part of a conversation. Um, but anyway, uh, I've been exposing myself to a lot of what you can call alternative history. There's a very interesting dude. His name is Jason. He runs a YouTube channel called Archaics, Archaix, and then so he's got his own idea, about history, and that we're in some kind of simulation, and that we go into these periodic resets, and that the simulation has been hacked, and by this, what the Gnostics called the demiurge, which I've spoken about in previous episodes. But I do think that is correct. Not that we're in a simulation, but that the sort of dominant energy on the planet that colored, that sent out the frequencies that we were interacting with, that sort of made the expression go into these very detrimental areas, was something that we would refer to as, demonic. Whether or not it's a demon, I mean, that's just a word, right? It's like the word that we have, so it's the best I got. Um, but yeah, basically, you can look at the demiurge, or this like demonic influence, as like a virus, something that infected the program, and that there have been people throughout history who have attempted to correct that. And that actually what he says, which is interesting, is that that's what the Great Pyramid of Giza was. It was an attempt to insert a repair code into the program that could combat what the demiurge was, doing here, what the virus was making the program be. And the as it turns out, the pyramid at Giza, it's scorched inside, right? So there's all the way up to the ceiling in the king's chamber. There was some kind of explosion. There's burn marks, and the inside of the king's chamber is like the pyramid itself is the outside of it is perfect, right? It's completely aligned, with north, south, east, and west, with the stars in Orion's belt. It's like from the top to the center, it's off by something like a quarter inch, and that's 2,300,000 blocks that were stacked on top of each other, like to perfection. Like we can't even do that with our skyscrapers currently. But when you go inside the king's chamber, everything is off by like a quarter inch or something. It's like something expanded that area, right? There was an explosion. Everything got pushed out a little bit. And what Jason says is that was the moment of activation, and that like the pyramid was built for a singular purpose, and it was to insert sort of a code into the simulacrum, which is what he calls it, rather than a simulation, which I think is probably more accurate. So anyway, that's cool. A rock from that pyramid. You got a piece of the pyramid at Giza. That's wild. So yeah, denial. The history that we've been taught denies what we are, and it denies the experience of so many people. And it's really all built on denial, right? Like the education system is really a filter. We have a part of our brains called the thalamus. The main feature of the thalamus is to filter, right? So, I've talked about the frequencies, right? Like the waves that we're being exposed to, the sound waves, the light frequencies, most of which we're not conscious of because our thalamus is blocking or sorting all those waves and just allowing certain ones to enter into our conscious awareness and be made up into, our visual experience or our auditory experience. The education system is that, right? It's a filter that all the information must pass through before it can be applied, to our reality, to life as we know it, or life as we knew it, because obviously now that Pluto's done its job, through Capricorn, all this information can start coming out because the institutions have been hollowed out. All the gatekeepers no longer are keeping watch on those gates. The gates are wide open, and the best that they can do now is just attack the people, right? Like there's no defending. There's no way to sort of, how can I put this? There's a lot of information out there, and the only defense that the establishment has is to call it misinformation or conspiracy theory. And conspiracy theory was that term didn't even exist until Kennedy got shot, and then the CIA developed it to sort of deny that there was any truth, that there was some kind of conspiracy, to assassinate JFK. And then, as it turns out, the CIA, from the papers that have been published more recently, had a major hand in it. Surprise, surprise. So okay, so we've all, everyone watching, because I doubt there's any children here, we've all been raised in this, very very Saturnian archetype. The denial of individual truth, right? The denial of information, not because it's wrong, but because it upsets the order. This is the order, this is how it is, this is how it has to be, because we need to make more cars. And when people make more cars, they can buy houses and they can support a family. And, money is an excellent medium of exchange. And if we don't have it, then we're just going to be, beating each other with rocks over whatever resource. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, all these ideas, which may or not be correct, but that was the order, and anything that potentially could disrupt that order, Saturn would come in and sort of put its boot down and say like no, and deny this person a career, or deny this person financial compensation or opportunity or whatever it was. But now it's all, and as a result, Saturn's gotten a bad rap, and a lot of people, when they start learning astrology, they don't like Saturn, and Aquarians especially, because Saturn is one of our ruling planets. We don't like that because we like Uranus, we like the new and the novel and the sort of revolutionary spirit, but we are containers of both, and so Aquarians tend to deny the Saturnian parts of themselves, that in order for you to have a successful revolution, you have to have continuity. Some things need to come from the past. We need to bring some things from the system that we're leaving into the system that we're creating, or into the system that's being created for us by the background energy. So, okay. So there's something that we can do here, collectively. And this is for the adults in the room, but also for the children, for all these teens, who were born as Pluto was moving into Capricorn, and now Pluto's leaving Capricorn, and it's been there their whole life. All they've known is Pluto in Capricorn. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity for them to be very upset, because Pluto's moving. It's the last planet to move out of their natal sign. It's very disruptive. It's a very disruptive moment for children who are around that age, between 10 and 15, say. And and just in general, I mean, their whole life has been about disruption. The disruption of the economic order, the disruption of the political order, right? Things literally flipping around, like what I was saying. And it's also impossible, because it's now impossible to deny, right? You can't just silence people. There's too many avenues of, expression, right? That Uranus energy coming in and developing all these different pathways, right? All these different types of technology that allows for information to disseminate in a myriad of ways, in a decentralized form. And it's like, obviously, there's still attempts to silence people, and just because people are saying it doesn't mean that it's true or correct or you should buy it. There is a lot of mistakes out there, but that's because we're not good at it, right? We've never been given the opportunity. We've been denied the ability to develop our own discernment, and instead we've been spoon-fed all this information, and told that we were a good boy or a good girl if we went along with what everyone told us we needed to go along with, and not to upset anything too much, and just agree, because your life will be better. And yeah, I think life was better for people who did that, and it wasn't very good for people who chose to buck these trends and sort of deny the truth of the system as it was. So yeah, so all this is really firmly imprinted on our nervous systems. I mean, I still, I'll be 44 in like 2 weeks, and I still kind of panic when I see a cop. It's like there's no reason for me to panic. It's like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to pull me over because I'm going too fast. I mean, who cares, right? It's a ticket and I'll pay it. But when I was younger, that wasn't, it's because I was in confrontations, like with law enforcement, because I was active, right? And I was an activist, and I didn't do anything illegal or dangerous, but that was the dynamic, right? It was a that's my enemy, us against them. And I was, an enjoyer of certain substances that were very illegal at the time that would have resulted in me getting perhaps into some real trouble, legally. Um, which again is also not even part of our children's lives now, right? It's like cannabis is legal again for good or not, wherever you land on that spectrum. A lot of substances that would used to get you like potentially like federal time if you had a very small quantity. Now it's not like that. There really are no consequences, and which carries its own issue. But anyway, so yeah, so we've got all this conditioning on our central nervous systems about denial and being denied opportunities if our beliefs didn't line up with the status quo. Being denied opportunity. Being denied, well, yeah, opportunity. I mean, really, that's all that I'm hearing is like the denial of opportunity. And now the thing that used to provide, and if you had a system that could deny opportunity, then you also were being provided opportunity through that system. So people who navigated the system very well, right, they rose to positions of prominence, and the people who didn't navigate it very well didn't. And that's, and they would call that a meritocracy, but it's not. It's not about talent. It's not about skill. The smartest, most inventive people have been kept out of the marketplace. There's exceptions. I mean, but by and large, that is true. And the people who had the ideas, the sort of mindsets to create some kind of alternative were in some cases, in a lot of cases, assassinated or put in prison. Um, Nikola Tesla, very famously, right, he kind of got into a war with, very powerful forces and lost. And, as a result was relatively obscure and broke. And what he envisioned couldn't come into, manifestation. And you know, he was able to grab energy out of the air and transmit it without wires, right? Um, I mean, that's just a fact. What is that dude's name who did the orgone? Wilhelm Reich. Who had the idea for an orgone generator and all this, and he was railroaded and on you know like assault like that. He sexually assaulted his clients or something, and then he died in prison, and his lab was raided, right, by the FBI, and they took all his research, and we don't know what he had or what anyone still has. It could all be destroyed. This has happened time and time again with researchers and scientists and naturopath, like people who are trying to find an alternative to medical treatments, and there's Royal Rife, who was treating like cancer with sound frequencies, and his recognition was denied, right? He was called a quack. All these people, just their reputations are completely assassinated, or they are physically assassinated, and their work is confiscated. All that's how we've developed, right? That's been the background energy. Not that that's the only way it could have gone, but that's the way it went, because we're literally being run by demons down here. But it's different now. I've talked about it a bunch. Just that energy is not on the planet. Because we have to remind ourselves also that the planet is moving through, like the planet is going through its process, right? We have to keep pace. We have to adapt. We have to clear ourselves of the things that hold us in the old order as the new order develops around us, so that we can keep pace with it. So that's what we're doing here. Because like I said, there was the denial of opportunity. People who poked their heads out did get them cut off. And so, yeah, so just, anyone who I'm connected to right now, anyone who's watching me, uh, anyone who's participating in the program right now, you're all gonna, we're all frequency holders for this. So I'm gonna be working. So Allison and Jillian, who are here, you two are going to be the sort of beneficiaries of this, but then you're gonna take that energy out with you, right? And impact people with that clarity. You don't have to do it directly. You don't have to do anything. It's just you won't be carrying that frequency anymore, which will be good for you, but then also be potentially good for the people that you interact with to whatever degree they can let go. It's all you two are here and you're interacting with me, like we're all you know on the same wavelength, give or take. Um, so yeah, so you two will be frequency holders. I'll be a frequency holder. John's going to be a frequency holder here. All of our nervous systems just getting cleared of all this conditioning about don't poke your head up or it's going to get cut off, and the sort of denial of opportunity, but also like we don't, it doesn't matter, these systems can deny us opportunity. We don't need the opportunity from them. We create our own opportunity. Or in my case, my opportunities come through the people who I interact with, because I'm a 4-6 profile, right? So the fourth line profile allows for the opportunities to come through other people. um, and especially as we move into this new phase, this new background energy, yeah, the opportunities will not be coming through large multinational corporations. That's the old programming. It's the old background energy. They're still going to operate. It's not going to all go away February 13th, 2027. That's the actual date of this shift in the background. But they won't be able to operate how they have. They won't have the authority that they had, and they won't be able to deny, or that denial of the access to the information, to the truth. The entertaining of ideas that in the past would have gotten you in real trouble, or even committed. There are a lot of people committed to institutions who were not crazy, but they just refused to be silent. And maybe that was a good idea, and maybe it wasn't, good or not. But that is what happened. And, we can go back to the Salem witch trials. Maybe that's the same thing. I don't know. There's been a lot of instances where people have been rounded up and executed or exiled or put somewhere for reasons that we've been, told, but that don't really make a lot of sense. And I don't know. But either way, we're not into that anymore. That's not what's happening. So we don't need to operate as if that could happen, or that has anything to do with the world that we're a part of, or the world that's coming. Yeah, and then once we're the carriers of that frequency, we can start exporting that frequency and impacting people with that frequency. I don't know what that's going to do, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, cool. Allison and Jillian, is there anything that you guys want me to work on for you specifically, or anyone else who's watching currently that would like something moved for them on an individual level? And I'll just take a little drink while I'm waiting. Monetary. Okay. Okay. That's a good one. There's a lot happening with money right now. Um, yeah, I mean, we don't even know. We don't even know what's happening with it really, but something's happening with it. Okay. It is still something that we need. And there's like something, again, talking about being a frequency holder for a new way of interacting with it. And yeah, and it's, the old way, it's again, it's just about like opportunity. We think we know how we're supposed to go about getting it, but as it turns out, that's not the best strategy. Like you can't you can't just like work and get enough to live anymore. There's a lot of people doing a lot of different jobs that do make a lot of money. There's a lot of people with a lot of money who pass that money on to their children or put something in a trust or develop like a real estate empire. I mean, but that's it. It's sort of like, um, we're in a transition. So, Jillian and Allison, what I want to do for you right now is help you with your patience. There's a there's a panic because there's a sense that, because again, we've all been raised to believe that there isn't enough. But if anything, yeah. But if anything, what we're shown, what we're shown is that there's a tremendous amount, right? Like there's like the world is awash in money. It's just how do you get it? How do you get it in a way that doesn't compromise your integrity? How do you get it outside of, working, doing the work for a multinational or in finance or whatever, like these worlds that not everyone's built for. Some people do very well in those worlds, and that's totally fine, right? Um, Not fine for me, not fine for you. And there's a lot of people who attempt to work in those worlds and they get burnt out and they still end up in very dire straits, because as it turns out they can't match the frequency of those places, of those corporations. They can't do what is demanded, so they get denied. And yeah, so it's just more like resting in resting into the truth of the abundance that we have. Yeah. Well, sure, Alice. So Allison saying I'm not trying to be rich, just trying to pay bills and raise my granddaughter. There's nothing, yeah, there's not also nothing wrong with being rich. Nothing, and that's kind of the thing. Like everyone's trying to be rich and no one's just doing. Like no one's just like, okay, like I'm comfortable, you know, uh, everyone wants like $1 billion, and again, um, that's part of the programming. Ice Cube was on Bill Maher's podcast, and it was a very interesting conversation because what he was saying is that a lot of the songs, a lot of like the rap lyrics are written by committees of people. It's not the artist, right? The artist is just performing it, but the record label and their whoever's making these decisions is coming to them and saying like we want the song to be like this. And if you don't want to perform this, then we will find someone who can, because you are disposable and we will deny you your status and your money if you don't play ball the way that we wanted to, because we want to continue this operation that's making us rich. So yeah, so there's been a lot of pressure on people with, especially with social media and everything else that's developed more recently, to like live this fantastic life that isn't even real. And we all know, right, that a lot of people who are posting things online are not living like that's what their life is. They're not living a fantastic life. They're creating the image of a fantastic life so that they can get the status and the money of having 1 million Instagram followers and being representative for some kind of brand. So yeah, it's like this whole idea of like abundance and affluence and being rich and living a fantastical life or not, right? That's sort of the only dichotomy that seems to be available. Like talking about Elon Musk, there was a story that dropped today about his his payment package from Tesla is $56 billion this year or something. It's like that. It's such a fantastic, like it's a number that's impossible for us to even conceive, and it makes for a feeling of helplessness, a feeling that like it's so out of reach, right? Like there's enough people making so much money and they can afford so many things that for people who are like just kind of making it, it seems all out of reach, and that progress is impossible. Yeah. So what's happening is due to the programming, talking about the thalamus and how the thalamus, how its main role is to, remove, right? It's like our thalamus is very focused on removing the frequencies that actually allow us to like make money or be wealthy or have a life that goes beyond uh, the the more mundane, right? The sort of day to day, like I have enough to eat today, that's cool. I can pay my bills, that's cool. The credit cards are maybe stacking up a little bit, but I can deal with that later. I just know that I have like enough to, eat, and that's great. Um, Getting beyond that feels very difficult because, again, there's like, we're not being shown how to do it. The actual frequencies that are there that allow for the because it's not about like this is kind of the thing, it's actually very passive. It's not about doing, it's about letting it come to you, right? It's about being correct with your energy and being patient, and that's very hard to do when you're really struggling. It's very hard to do when you have people who are dependent on you and you're having a hard time providing for them. So again, there's this pressure to just sort of, what you need to do, but there's pressure making it very hard, if not impossible, for you to actually do it. So, um, but the energy is all around you, and it can be grabbed from the air, and it can be distributed without wires. And we don't need to do something fantastic. It's really just about existing, and it's about being correct and being patient, waiting for the opportunity in whatever way works for you according to your design, to your constitution, to all these things. So Allison, I feel this in you more strongly, so I'm going to start with you and going into your thalamus. Your thing with it has a lot more to do with the masculine and talking about the father, and the father being the like provider, and there being this very rigid sense that someone needs to give it to you. Someone with power over you, someone with a greater degree of authority has to give it to you. It has to come from like through their hand. Um, and not that you're just waiting for that, right? Like you're sort of going out and trying to find it, like, well, where is that hand that can give it to me? But then it's always going to be not really rewarding. It's not going to work. And there's a lot of distrust as a consequence. There's things that are coming to you that, we had talked this week, right? There are things coming to you that seem too good to be true, and maybe it is, but maybe it's not. And maybe this is just how things can go, that literally something can just fall into your lap that you can follow. You don't need to commit to anything, but you can follow stuff and let it take you where it's going to take you, and trust that you're going to be getting what you need because your energy is correct and you're following your strategy and your authority. Jillian, for you, it's actually on the other end. So for you, it's more on the left side, the more feminine side. And it's sort of like a older way of looking. Um, like a more traditional sense of kind of like, yeah, almost like crafting in a certain way, that you can like well, it's not yours. Again, just sort of an older feminine archetype that's trying to be, expressed, and there is something connected to like monetary flow with it. about kind of making things that are useful, but that's not. It's not to say that you can't make things that are useful. It's just to say that the model that you're working with isn't allowing for you to kind of adapt, right, and to make the things that are useful now, or the things that are going to be useful in the future, or like what people even need from you. Maybe you need to write a book, right? Like, or something like craft some kind of material with your words, verbally. But that's not how women operated, right? Women made things that were functional. It was like clothing and like little arts and crafts things, and whatever. And there was a value and there was a market, but that's not. And it's not to say that we can't rediscover one, but it is to say that it's going to be different than the one that existed before. And it's not going to be tradition. Yeah, because what Pluto moving through Capricorn did was it tossed like tradition. Tradition doesn't tradition doesn't work, which again goes to the whole thing about like the father being the source of wisdom. It's like, yeah, my dad, I mean, he didn't really know much. His dad didn't teach him much. They just, again, sort of like kind of scrambled, like we're it was like and this is also the feeling of 2000. It was a real scramble. Everything's been a scramble since 2008. Everything's been like, well, I'm lucky to have a job. I'm lucky to still have a home. I'm lucky I can afford these things. And maybe I'm even in a position where I can go up the corporate ladder and make even more money. And so why would I explore anything that might upset that? Why would I explore conspiracy theories or spirituality or any of these things? And then as a result, the people who were exploring these things tended to be very marginal. They were their value was very much denied. So yeah. So anyway, going back to you, Jillian, and just clearing that sort of traditional framework from your feminine, your feminine brain, what it chooses to let in, what it chooses to sort of deny, because there's only so much information that you can work with. But it needs to be it needs to be updated. It needs to be a more modern interpretation without the judgment of what that means. Obviously, women are having a hard time in their own way understanding what they're supposed to do, and what they're supposed to be. And again, it's just like, well, just wait. Like something will ask you to be a part of it, or to participate with it, or the opportunity will come through it. And then it's just a matter of saying yes if it's correct, because it might not be. You might still need to say no, even though you've been waiting for this for what feels like a very long time. If it's not correct, it's not correct. All right, good. Okay, well, let's leave it there for today. That's my time. Thank you to everyone who participated and everyone watching, and you know, enjoy this transiting energy. It is very special, and we're all here in a very special time, and things are eventually gonna, it might get a little worse before it gets better, but I think we're close to the upswing part of it. So let's go. Okay, thank you all so much.